1 in, 9 in, 3 likes.
It takes a second.
Please hit likes, guys.
Let's register.
Good evening. State College, we are. Wisconsin. I was just talking to somebody today about my time in Wisconsin. 5 years with the DOJ in Milwaukee. I had none. Detroit. West Memphis, Arkansas. Well, that sounds very familiar. West Memphis 3.
Oh, is that what that's from?
Yeah. That was that big court case was. Navajo Nations. Wow.
I'm going to give it just like 30, 45 more seconds just to give people a chance to come in before we start pulling questions, because since we're a few minutes late, I get better connectivity in my office than we do in Chris's office.
My computer, for some reason, I have no idea what's going on. It just, it's just not working. It's too slow.
Yeah, Jim, I sent him the campus book pics, the ones where he has your book popped up in some Penn State positions. We've gotten, yeah, no, I sent you that when he came in. Yeah, his memory of Dory. No, we've gotten some really cool pictures from you guys that have come in. I thought about putting them all together because you guys are definitely got creative. Okay, guys, we're gonna get started. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, Brent.
If you have a question, just pop it in the chat line. If you would like to get priority over all the other questions coming in, because there will be a lot at some point, you can make a donation by clicking the $sign and using the super chat function. However, Google does take 30% of your donation, which is rather a lot. So our preferred method is DonorBox, and there is a link that I have already put into the chat. For DonorBox, it's very easy to use. You put your question in the notes section of it, and I get an email, and I have my phone here at all times, and I can pull it that way as well. But regardless, we don't just take paid questions. And we will try to get through as many as we can tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we are going to kick it off. Sean from DonorBox, thank you, Sean. He just gave a donation. Just to
Thank
say
you very much.
Kirk, thank you, Kirk. He says his girlfriend shot his Beretta PX4 Storm Langdon at a basic pistol class last month. Now wants to get a PX4 or a Beretta 80X 380 ACP. She says her name ends in a vowel, meaning we know she's Italian, and she has an inherent Beretta bias. I'm sure you could appreciate that. Any issue with either pistol?
Well, 380, I'm not a fan of. I think the 9mm would be a much better way to go. I'm trying to recall if the Beretta, if that's a rotating barrel or if it's a direct blowback. Most of the 380s are direct blowback, which means more recoil. So it's funny. I've had some experience with the PX4, actually mostly with the 45. When I was in Rochester, our PD adopted the PX4 and 45 for a duty pistol for a short while. What's really impressive about that is the recoil, the way that it pushes you instead of snaps you, like a typical Browning tilting barrel locking mechanism is. It's a rather large gun, though, especially for a female. So it is a little larger side.
Dustin on Box. Thank you, Dustin. Is there a formula for figuring buffer weight versus barrel weight, or is it just knowledge passed after trial and error?
Well, again, looking at a couple different things. You're looking at your ejection pattern. If you're at 1 o'clock, you need to slow it down. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to increase your buffer weight. Because you ideally want to be between 3 and 4 o'clock is where you want to be. That's one way of doing it. The other thing is if you know you have a heavy barrel, then you can go with an H2. But for the most part, it's trial and error. It's you watching that ejection pattern, because the whole point is slowing it down, not too slow, but just getting it down so again you're like 3, 4 o'clock ejection pattern.
Kevin on Box. Thank you, Kevin. Which is the closest to the New Zealand reference rifle, the LMT MRP Mars L or the LMT Mars CQB if your budget is 2,500?
It is the exact same rifle as a standard MRP in 5.56. With the New Zealand one is 1913 rails, if I recall. It's the exact same gun. The only thing they did to it was, of course, the ambi lower. Then you added the war comp with the bayonet lug at it. That is the absolute only difference. Oddly enough, the Estonia rifle is a completely stock rifle with just those two changes.
I have a question. I have a Colt 6940p piston gun, and I heard there's only a few thousand of them made. Is that true?
I can't give you an exact number, but I will definitely say they were limited, which is very unfortunate. And what's actually even more unfortunate about them is there's no spare parts. One of you guys a couple of years ago, I guess the gas rings on the piston sheared off, and the guy called Colt and I said I need new gas rings for my 6940p, and they said nope, don't got them. So basically, the guy had a very, very expensive clump. Fortunately, I was able to get a hold of a friend there and get a couple sets of them, so I was able to provide the guy with some gas rings, because I don't believe they're the same ones that LMT uses on theirs. So the biggest problem with the 6940p is that there's no spare parts. They stopped making them for commercial law enforcement use quite some time ago. I do understand. Actually, Brett could probably chime in on that they are still available for military purchases.
Is the Vistava ZPAP N70 still the best AK to buy?
I think so. I think that's probably still the best, the best available out there. It's an import.
After the M16A1 designation with Forward Assist, how are the Air Force lowers marked? Still as M16, or did Colt just roll mark them all A1 for the sake of brevity?
I have to say, I don't believe I've ever seen one that was marked M16A1. When the Air Force bought their large numbers, they were still marked M16 or AR-15. I don't know if they ever bought any A1s at the time they stopped. I think they went right from the original M16s to the A2s. I can recall being in Wisconsin, the Air National Guard there, right prior to them being deployed to, I think that was Afghanistan. They still had original M16s, no forward assist, 112-inch barrels, and they were just starting to convert those into A2s. And once they went to deploy, they turned all that crap in and got brand new M4s. So, I mean, again, I was not in the Air Force. The ones that I saw when I did work with them were marked M16 or AR-15.
Can you have too much magnification on an
AR? As an assault rifle, when it's being used as a combat rifle where you can be up close, you really shouldn't be above 4 power on a 5.56. 4 power is the maximum that you can actually raise to your shoulder and you get an immediate sight picture without having to adjust your head. So 4 power is probably the best overall. 308, you get probably go up to 6 power, but once you get to 6 power, you're going to be doing some beating your head to try and get a good sight picture. But for a good combat rifle, 4 power. LPVOs work great, but you can adjust them. But really go above that, it makes it difficult for you to use at close quarters, because close quarters is what you're going to be using this kind of a rifle under 100 yards. And having a really high powered optic on there is just a waste.
Have you tried the JR Carbine PCC? They have a lot of good features.
No, I have not.
Has Beretta tried making a striker version of the M92 or PX4? I hate how they gave up on avoiding the Browning system.
You know, they never used the Browning system. They used the siltating lock on the M9 series, 92 series, and then they went to the rotating barrel. They never went with the Browning locking system. There's nothing wrong with it. It's sort of their calling card. Um, Berettas are very, very unique because of that as well. Very unique recoil, very unique, a push instead of a snap. It's sort of a calling card for Beretta. So I guess I wouldn't say it's a bad thing at all.
What's your thoughts on Colt's new 7.62 by 39 gun? Any good, accurate? Do you know if they will shoot steel case well?
I have not had a chance to get my hands on one, but if you go back to the days when they made them the Colt Sporter series prior to the ban, the only problem with that rifle was the magazines. The guns worked. They worked with steel. They worked with brass. They worked. The problem was a magazine. Once you put one of the aftermarket magazines from back in the day, and the guns didn't work, which is why Colt got rid of them. Now, with the good magazines they have today, the Durmag especially, that was basically perfected, you put that in that rifle, I can't see it having any problems at all. Because it's not difficult making one shoot. The only difficult is the ammunition. You have just a whole wide variety of pressure curves where ARs are not like AKs where they're just overgassed to the point where they'll fire anything. But I don't see any problem with them at all. Just stick with the Durmag.
With your upcoming Black Rifle 3 book, will there be a section on lubricants oils used for the AR-15 from the early onset of the Vietnam War towards modern day lubricants?
Whenever the time does come that I do that, I probably would talk very briefly about the newest revisions. I wouldn't go back that far. I would talk about more of the modern, the G96, the modern CLPs. I'd probably talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned, from the whole war on terror. Because there was a lot of issues that went on back in those days with the original break-free CLP, and the Miltech. There's other ones that came out that work better in the desert environment until started getting the G96 CLP, and people actually learned how to lubricate the guns in that environment.
If forced to use a fixed stock with a rifle buffer using a 16-inch barrel for 223, should weights be removed from the buffer? Is one MOA dot too small for pistol, or just turn up the brightness?
As long as your eyes can do it, I would turn up the brightness. I mean, that will work, but I probably would turn it up a little bit as long as if the haze work, you can't see your target.
On early 2012 Colt LE 6920s, was a roll mark used on the Colt defense markings. The markings seemed crisp and perfect. Did Colt ever use stamps in place of roll marks on the Colt defense markings?
I never saw stamps in my time there. They were all roll marked. They always up until more recently when they went to the laser. I don't remember seeing any stamps. Yeah, it's all to understand too. I mean, as time goes on, that technology improves. So the way the roll stamps are made, so they will look better. You really can't compare a rifle that was made in 2012 to one that was made in 1968. Your technology does change; things do get improved.
Thoughts on Caracal USA releasing the CMP9 9mm carbine? Any info on this firearm?
I just heard about it myself. I talked to Jeff Spalding over there. That is something I'm interested in taking a look at once they become available. Caracal does not release anything until it's ready. These guys are not. They've had a 9mm carbine back in the day when I was in the UAE. Well, probably 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. I remember being over there. They had a 9mm carbine. These guys do good work.
What are your thoughts on the piston-operated SIGs replacing the M4 platform? I believe the M4 should be modernized like a Mars lower and SOCOM profile barrel with new age furniture and rails.
Well, I'm sure you're referring to the new M7, which is the 6.8. I'm not a fan of that caliber. I'm not a fan of going to a larger full-powered rifle cartridge to begin with. To me, I think the M4 is still the way to go until something better comes across. I think I told you in a video, guys, in a video I did on the Spear Light, that I felt that rifle chambered in 6.8 SPC would have been a much better option than what they got. again, I'm not a fan of the external piston. I don't think it's necessary. I think the internal piston works very, very well.
I did plop in the chat, but I just want to speak on it very quickly that we do have some things that are available for sale on smallarmsolutions.com that Chris has pulled from his office. I can't really be specific just because, YouTube and, there's a couple words on there that are not allowed. So if you want to go to smallarmsolutions.com and check those out, they're really good deals. They're marked below what you would get them from anywhere. Nolan on Donnerbox, thank you, Nolan. How is the 14.5-inch mid-length compared to the 16-inch mid-length? Just watched your video about the barrel from Centurion Arms. Thank you both for your work. Thank you.
For reliability, using the mid-length gas systems, they're both excellent. They're both improvements over the carbine. I had no problem either way. 16-inch, again, you're getting a little bit higher velocity. You're getting a little bit more range. In my opinion, a 16-inch would be better than to go with a 14.5-inch. But if you choose to go with a 14.5-inch, mid-length is the way to go. It's always the way to go.
How do we feel about the Daniel Defense M4A1 R3?
Again, I know there's a lot of you guys who disagree with me. I think Daniel Defense is an extremely overpriced rifle. I do believe there's a lot of things out there that are just as good, if not better, for significantly less money. They're excellent guns. There's no question. I'm not taking that away from them at all. But you look at one of mine. You want to mine use over Centurions. You look at one of his rifles, his Recce rifle, or something along those lines, which are less expensive probably than even most of the Daniel Defense rifles. Better rifle. Mine is a standard combat rifle with a lightweight barrel. Just as good of a gun. If you have a very deep wallet and you don't mind spending that kind of money, I made the comment one time. I thought those were more of a boutique rifle because of the cost. There were several people who sent me nasty grams telling me that they disagreed. They were not, they were not boutique rifles.
Well, he said a buddy of his wants to do a trade deal where he'd acquire his barely used Daniel Defense M4A1 for one of his AR-10s.
You'll never go wrong with them. So far as I know, Daniel Defense holds their value. Oddly enough, the one that probably holds its value the most is either Colt. As long as you have that prancing pony on there, they probably hold their value better than anything that's out there, even with the current ones that are coming out. But Daniel Defense, they certainly have their following. There's no question.
Does SCAR 1720 and RCH still have the same optic killing issue? And also, do you know where I can get Crane or SOCOM's approved optic list for the SCAR 1720?
Well, I haven't seen an actual list. I can tell you the one that mostly is used is the LCAN Spectre. That I think it was a 1.5 to 6, which that's what I have on mine. So far as I know, that's probably one of the most durable ones that's out there. But yes, all those have the same issue. All those 762 SCARs, doesn't matter which model it is.
Why don't we see railed gas blocks anymore?
Most gas blocks these days are covered. You don't even see them. They're underneath handguards. I would expect that's probably the main reason. And also the fact is people aren't putting iron sights on guns much anymore.
Has anyone from the U.S. military branch used the mid-length gas system for 5.56 other than simple test and evaluation?
SOCOM did a report on it. I think I have it someplace where they did a complete write-up of carbine length versus mid-length. And basically their conclusions was anything that the carbine length can do, the mid-length can do better. The biggest thing with SOCOM is they get a lot of their guns through normal military channel, meaning their M4s come out of Anniston Army Depot, which means they're going to be mil-spec. It's difficult for them to buy their own specific guns to their own specifications, especially since their main gun they use is still the M4A1.
What are your thoughts on the M203?
M203?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Many people will tell you the 203 is outdated. I can tell you that I've looked at the HK, our current one that we have, M3. I don't recall the name offhand. There was one military, and I believe it was Denmark, because I did the training. Denmark did a whole big trial for a new grenade launcher for their army to go in their Canadian C7 rifles. HK was in the running. They went with the 203. And the reason I went with the 203 was the fact that the trigger was much better. It didn't have that spongy double action trigger pull of the H&K. So they basically said the 203 was a more accurate design. Now, the only benefit that the newer ones have over the M203 is the M203, it moves forward. So you have a very limited length there. You can put in, longer projectiles, and your normal golden grenades they work great. But if you want to put something that was longer, more of a parachute flare, or something that was longer, you would not be able to get that in there. Where the HK, where barrel swings out, you can pretty much take anything you want in there. Personally, I like the 203. And again, I think it's the same reason, the trigger.
Can you tell me the origin of the auto bolt release on the AR-10, AR-15? Was this inspired by the fall?
Auto bolt release.
The origin of the auto bolt release on the AR-10, AR-15, and was this inspired by the fall?
Well, bolt catch. I mean, many rifles for many years lock back on the last shot. That's not anything that was uncommon. At the time, the biggest competitor out there was the AK-47, which didn't do that, and it was always a problem because when it fired its last shot, you just heard a click you didn't know. Where you had a bolt lock up on the last shot, you could hear it, and you could feel it, so you knew when your rifle was empty. So it was a major benefit. But if you look at most U.S. military rifles, short of the M1 carbine, there was some I had the M1 Grand lockback, the M14 was lockback. A majority of the rifles out there do.
Will Centurion offer the 14.5 SOCOM mid you have?
Yeah. That mine was not a limited run. Again, he's going to be selling all that stuff. It's just a matter of him being able to get it in stock.
Yeah, it's just really, you just have to keep checking and checking and checking, because I've talked to his wife, and as soon as they put it up, it's gone. So you just have to kind of be vigilant at checking daily. I would tell you daily.
Yeah.
And keep those codes on hand. I did put them in the chat box, but if ever you lose them, they're in every description of the video, all our videos on YouTube. And each one of those, you save either 3%, 5%, or 10%. So depending on what you're purchasing. So just keep those handy, and maybe one night you'll get lucky and it'll be up and you can snack one up.
Sean, you said that barrel's in stock right now. It's a Centurion.
Whoop, there you go.
Enhanced SOCOM barrel. Yep.
You better run, guys, run. Have you had any experience with Chi-Tac ARs? They're known for long-range bolt actions. It's not really a bolt action.
The only Chi-Tac I've ever really looked at was one that was made by Noreen. The round is very, very rare.
Received a $2,800 offer from my Arsenal SLR 105. Do you think I should sell it or hold on to it?
That's about the going price. The guy who you need to ask about that is Michiko, William. That is his area. He's big into SLRs, the Arsenals. He is the true expert when it comes to that, but that price sounds about right.
What do you think of the Daewoo K2?
I have one. It is a very neat rifle. The story, I have a video on it. You might want to check it out because it gives you sort of the history on it. This was another one of those things where Colt screwed up. Basically, Colt licensed the Koreans to manufacture the M16A1, but it got so prohibitive with the cost of the license. Korea couldn't afford to keep building those rifles under license. They took the knowledge that they had from manufacturing those rifles and designed their own, which was the K2. But they decided they wanted to go with a hybrid. They wanted some of it, M16 type. And they wanted to go with something that was new, and they were more fond of the external piston than they were the internal. But there's a video that goes over that really, really well. It's a very nice rifle.
Would you do a video on the Colt 733 and all its variants in the transition period?
Just to see if I can get my hands on them. I'm always open to do Colt videos. Absolutely.
Yeah, Colt videos always do well, and I think the crime series and combining it with a Colt, it was such a cool topic.
Yeah, I could. I think we were both very shocked to see how well people responded.
I wasn't shocked. I'm always telling him to make more crime series, but he doesn't always listen to me.
That would be fun, but that one did really, really well.
Well, you took it to a whole other level. I got to give you that. It wasn't just a crime series. It was a crime series on steroids. if you want to, if you love Colt and you want to hear about Colt, like this is your man. And then you combine those two topics together, where he was a forensic scientist and he's actually on site pulling these guns, and and was able to have that information. I mean, it's just it really it epitomizes the exact reason why I wanted to start this channel and bring him to you guys, because it just like he has such cool stories like that. The fact that we waited so long to make that video, I'm just like, why didn't you do that a while ago?
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he did, and I'm glad we could bring it to you guys. And it seems like you really liked it. Um, which do you prefer, steel, non-aluminum mags with updated Magpul enhanced followers, or PMags?
PMags. Absolutely PMags.
So based on your preference for the M203, would you say the M203 is the only reason for using a carbine link gas system instead of the mid-length if you were going to mount it to the rifle?
That's true. Or if you go something like with the LMT, with the MRP, where you're not mounting it to the barrel at all, that works out well too. There are ways to mount gray launchers on rails now that you don't have to mount it directly to the barrel. Uh, look at the LMT. It's you're really looking at a direct rail mount. So as long as you get a proper rail on it, you can do that.
Could you explain internal and external piston systems and which one is superior?
Inter- People like to refer to the M16 as direct gas. It is not. Direct gas, basically, you have basically your gas is impinging on a flat surface to knock it back, like the Swedish Youngman. An AR-15 and M16 is not. Basically, you have an exhaust pipe that goes into a carrier key that directs the gas down into the carrier, where a piston's made up between the back of the bolt and back of the carrier, and that's how it's operated. So it is actually a piston. The difference is the piston is inside the rifle rather than on the outside. So internal piston would mean you have the bolt carrier where the piston is inside the bolt carrier between the back of the bolt, back of the carrier, where an external piston is like an AK, where your piston's an operating rotor in the front of the barrel. Both of them, which one's superior? The external piston with extremely short barrels could be a little bit better. But overall, for 14.5 inch and up, even 10.5, I prefer the internal piston. It's lighter. There's less parts. They work better in the cold. They don't freeze up as much. Um, it's a system that works, and it's worked for 60, 70 years right now, and it's still being used and being replaced with weapons that are on the external piston design, just like New Zealand. New Zealand had Steyr Ox, AUGs, and that was a piston gun replaced by a internal piston. Estonia, you look at the number of guns they had there that were all Galils and all kinds of different ones. They were all external piston. They were replaced by a modern internal piston LMT. So the system still works. It's still relevant, and it's been my preference. It works as long as you have it made properly with the proper parts, like anything else. You put together a rifle of crap parts that don't have, they're not within tolerances or not made right. Yeah, the guns don't work. Actual military grade rifles, still to this day, they're trying to replace the M4. I don't believe the M7 is going to do it. The M4 is still the weapon of choice throughout the world. For free countries who can afford them.
Low-key Observer said he loved black rifles.
Oh, thank you very much.
We were just talking about that today. What a pain in the butt it was.
Yeah, it was.
I'm glad it turned out better than the original.
Oh, it did. It turned out much better.
And the fact that he said that, like, I kind of thought that, but I was so deep. When you're so deep in a project and it takes so long to get it to come to fruition, you almost get blinded by the good work that comes from it. So, it's a big pat on my back to hear him say that it's better than the original, considering how high quality collector grade publications is. But it's been hard.
It's been 20 years also, so I think publishing technologies improved since then as well. So
yeah,
not to mention the quality of the paper that you got was significantly better.
But I think what I realized in all of it is that it's just too much work for me to do with everything else that I'm doing. So this will probably be the only print that Small Arms Publishing ever does of this book. So it's definitely something you should snatch up while you can, because it will be a collector a collector's item in its own right. Unfortunately, I hate saying that because I hate admitting defeat for things, but yeah, I have to know when to part ways with something. Um, we know of your hatred of the M14. Please give a quick recap why you hate it. What about PTR 91 and DSA foul? And future videos on these. Will there be future?
Well, I
videos
have
on
I have a
these?
video that specifically talks about why I'm not a fan of the M14, but just quickly in a nutshell, when the request came out for the new rifle, it was supposed to replace the M1, the M1 carbine, the Thompson, the grease gun. It was supposed to replace all those with a rifle that was lightweight, high capacity, and so forth. Well, what they came out with was basically an M14 that fired 7.62, uncontrollable and fully automatic. It didn't do anything that it was supposed to do. It didn't replace any of them. It didn't do anything better. The M1 Garand was still more accurate. It still had more recoil than the M1 carbine. It was the wrong rifle. The FAL was a better rifle, and the G3 was a better rifle. They were always more reliable. Um, the fact was is that it was adopted for the previous war, and as soon as the Vietnam War kicked off, it was immediately seen how deficient it was. That you could not win a battle against the Viet Cong platoon who's armed with AKs with an M14. It's not going to happen. You're not going to survive an ambush with an M14 on fully automatic. It just showed that the entire purpose of that rifle was longer range. You're not going beyond 100 yards, and most engagements are well under 100 yards. So the heavy recoil, the less capacity, the inability to control on full auto makes it a gun that's useless in an ambush. It's long, it's heavy, and quite frankly, they were never as reliable as a lot of people like to say they were. If you look at any tests where they do sand, those guns are stopped very quickly in sand, where M16s and M4s do much better. So the fact was that rifle from its inception was outdated, and the fact was is throughout the adoption of the M16, how it was fixed because the Army wanted to go with that because it was their design, they were manufacturing it. So you look at the corruption that went on and how many GIs died because they wanted to keep their M14, they didn't develop the M16 properly. Well, there's a lot of reasons why I don't care for it, both mechanical, philosophical, and application.
Timothy said he has a nerd question. Timothy, you're safe here. I think you're in the room with all the same kinds of people. 14.5-inch mid, 5.56 NATO barrel with a 1 7-inch twist. What grain is optimal for 0 with a 1 6x LPVO?
There is no optimal. If you look at ammunition that's accurate, Mark 262 or 77 grain OTM, the 69 grain OTMs, these are going to be the most accurate rounds. But for as far as optimal, no. I mean, you're going to be adjusting your scope for whatever ammunition that you use. If you want to get the best performance out of the rifle, you use good ammo. You're not going to go use Wolf and expect to get any kind of a decent group. If you really want to see what that rifle can do with that scope, get yourself some good 77 grain OTM ammunition.
Has aerogel or ceramics ever been considered for thermal insulating in firearms?
Not that I am aware of, not in the small arms. Again, you're looking at materials that are probably going to be heavier than what's already out there. It's going to make the gun more bulky than the current materials. I don't see it being a benefit. Perhaps in larger crew served type or larger artillery, maybe it would be because you don't have as much of a restriction for as far as weight and its dimensions. Small arms, I don't think so.
To your knowledge, what 223-556 bullet weight and manufacturer has the reputation for being the most accurate bullet, all things considered, for long range shooting?
But Black Hills, the Mark 262 is taking the cake every single time. Ammunition that I've used, if I want to test a rifle and I want to see what it can actually do, that's what I go to. Black Hills 77 grain OTM. Now, are there other ones out there that are very good? Sure. Henry Chan, a friend of mine, you guys been on Mental Review. He's quite fond of the IWI Razor 77 grain. I've seen, I use SIG 77 grain OTM, which has worked out very well. Federal Gold Medal 77 grain works very well. It's mostly about the projectile. You get a good match grade projectile. That's really the key. But if you had to ask me what I think the best is it's Black Hills if you can find it, and if you're willing to pay for it. I think it's the best that's out
I spoke to Colt rep, and he said that they are bringing back the LE 901, but in M5 configuration later this year. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, M5 configuration is LE901. If you're looking at what the M5 is, the lower receiver on an M5 was manufactured out of forgings up from the LE901. Basically, the magazine one was just chopped down. It's the same receiver, unless they're talking about making an upper receiver which uses that kind of a handguard. Um, M5 configuration. Colts wanted to get away from the one-piece upper receiver for years because they're paying royalties to LMT because of patent infringement. So it would make sense for Colt to want to get away from doing the one-piece upper receiver. But the only thing I can see M5 would be changing to a two-piece handguard system.
Back to Tim's question about that one right there.
Mm-hmm.
He said that's what I expected to hear, which is why I follow you and what your videos say, because he also hates Reddit.
Sorry, I keep hitting my desk here. Yeah, well, I've been using this ammunition a lot of years. If you look at the reputation the Mark 12 has had in Afghanistan and Iraq, the global war on terror. If you look at some of the SEALs, for instance, Bonnie LeClaire, that's what he carried, and that's why he's so fond of it. That's why he builds them. That round and that rifle have just been responsible for some incredible shots.
Choose a FAL or G3. Is it better 308 guns, or is there better 308 guns in mind?
For me, I'll tell you right up, an AR-10 is better than both of those. Now, the thing about the G3, a hell of a lot more recoil than the FAL. As far as accuracy is concerned, I think they probably would be up to par. Trigger's concerned, probably the FAL, even though it's a little more smushy. The trigger pull on the G3 is extremely long and very staple gun-like. It's not nearly as nice. I would say the FAL pretty much all day long over the G3.
Any idea if Air Precision M5 lower parts kits would work with the LMT MES lower?
Well, it's just they use standard hammer triggers assemblies, standard M16 hammer trigger assemblies. For as far as the 308 is concerned, it's not going to use the same bolt catch. Bolt catch is a two-piece for the LMT. Magazine catch, again, the standard magazine catch might work, but it's got the ambidextrous. Pivot pins probably would work. Some of it would, but when you get to the bolt catch and the magazine releases were a no-go.
What is the best gas tube length for an AR in 7.62 by 39 with a 16-inch barrel?
I always prefer a mid-length, overall. It doesn't matter what caliber that is. 7.62 by 39 ARs are just a little bit more complicated because of how broad the ammunition is as far as the spectrum of chamber and port pressures. The port, 5.56 nano ammunition, you got a specific port pressure that you can build the gun to. 7.62 by 39 isn't like that. That ammunition is all over the board.
Do you think you'll ever get your hands on any of the guns from Warsport Industries or Salient Arms or ZRO Delta? I just picked up the ZRO's LVO-A rail system for my carbine build.
To be honest with you, I never looked into them.
Well, that goes back to somebody, what's your go-to gun shop? I don't think it really has one.
My go-to gun shop, unfortunately, I just lost it. Brandon, our FFL Brandon, he had the gun room here in Shenandoah, and he just closed up shop this month.
He's not a traditional gun shop.
Yeah, okay. He's an FFL small shop. Traditional gun shop, I have no idea.
Could you just roll up to his house and knock on the door?
You make appointments.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah,
I have
with
sometimes.
Brandon, you would make
Sorry, guys.
appointments.
Sometimes I have legit questions for the gun expert. I just wonder how that works.
Yeah, no, he would sell it to anybody, but it would be by appointment. But as far as brick and mortar gun shops, to be honest with you, I don't go to him, so I don't really have one. We do have a new FFL who we're going to be using. He's actually a little bit of a drive for us out in Baytown. He's also a cop like Brandon was for Baytown BD. So we're just getting set up with him. We're going to be talking to you guys about him, and he's going to be probably involved with us a little bit because he's got a lot of full auto stuff, a lot of class 3 stuff that I think you guys might find interesting.
Any reason to purchase USGI OK Industries mags when Gen 3 PMAG exists?
So, there's so many reasons the PMAG is better. The constant curve, the fact that you have the polymer, the shot column it's just much smoother feed. Um, in fact, I can tell you we've had rifles before when I was at Colt that have used GI magazines because the cyclic rate was so high that the GI magazines, the shot column would rise up fast enough to work in the gun. Where you put a PMAG in there, the PMAG would make the gun work just fine because the shot column good because of the spring and the low friction of the polymer inside and the follower. Where the GI magazines, no, they couldn't keep up. So yeah, I can't see any reason for the GI magazines with the PMAGs that are out there.
Do you think it'd be worth making an AR-10 rifle but increasing the diameter of the BCG tail buffer and buffer tube similar to the HK417?
No, primarily because you're not going to get much of a mechanical benefit, and the other thing is you're going to have just a nightmare with parts. Yeah, the whole reason why it was scaled down in the first place was so when Reed Knight and Gene Soner went to work on the SR-25, they wanted to have as much parts commonality with the AR-15 M16 as they could. That was the M16A2. In order to use that receiver extension, everything had to be brought down. That's why it was scaled down to begin with. I don't see any benefit in going back up to the larger diameter. You're still going to have the same recoil. I think you're going to get much difference in recoil, but you're going to lose all that parts commonality. You're not going to find a lot of spare parts for it. Anybody who's got an original AI or Origin AR-10, good luck finding the parts.
Sounds like a whole other language.
Yeah, it is. It's a Dutch company.
I hope you guys enjoyed my photo that I included of Chris yesterday. Yeah, this is his first time participating in packaging books.
I probably packaged, what, 60 of them or something the last couple of days?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to get the chiropractor next. I had to go to the chiropractor. Rotor cuff issues, like all these like pinched nerves and stuff. Turns out it's for packaging y'all's books. They're like, if you can stop doing that repetitive motion, I'm like, okay, so I'll get some more angry messages from people.
Well, we are right now on the
cusp
of being completely caught up with book sales.
We are, as far as signed copies go. Signed copies are completely caught up all the way through June 21st. And now I just have to catch up with all the unsigned copies from the deal that we had going on at the end of May. Chris had a car accident and, had some medical stuff going on that we had to deal with. So that kind of backed things up some, but we are on the cusp.
So hopefully very soon.
Because I would really enjoy being able to open my email box without having people scream at me.
I get them too. But like I said, everything was done the best that it could be under the conditions. Again, she's not Amazon.
Well, that's why I say it's like that's why I just don't think that I can continue doing it, just because it's just too much. It's too much for one person, and I'm making a lot of people angry, and I don't want to make people angry. I want to make people happy. So, what are your thoughts on Shadow Systems Glock clones, and thoughts on Glock and Glock clones in general, waiting for second channel weight loss solutions? Cheers.
Well, I can't tell you too much about Shadow Systems because I don't know. But as far as the Glock clones are concerned, there's a lot of them out there, and they work. I mean, it's the gun's not that complicated. It's extremely simple. There are benefits to some of these non-Glocks, as far as the barrels, standard cut rifling versus the polygon for shooting lead bullets, making the guns more accurate, increasing the quality of the trigger. Glock triggers suck; they always have. You have a little tit in the middle that makes your fingers sore if you shoot them a lot. There's a lot of work to be done to improve the Glock. Where Glock is hit perfection, you're going to get it the way that Mr. Glock wants you to, and that's it. Which again, this is not a Colt thing where if you don't give the customer what they want, somebody else is going to do it. And I think that's where all these Glock clones are coming from. Is Glock comes one way, and these other guys are being able to make them what you want. They're giving you better frames, they're giving you better grips, and they're giving you better everything. So yeah, I don't see a problem with the Glock clones at all.
Is the TPM MS Anvil a solid AK for the price?
I have not used one of those, so I really can't tell you. Those are sort of hard to get a hold of coming from that company. Um, but if you look at the stats and everything on it, I still think that the stop is a better way to go. Cold hammer forged chrome line barrel. I mean, God, it's everything you can ask for.
Favorite BCG and metal type? You must be new to the channel.
There's no question. I think probably the best book here on the market is the LMT enhanced, but problem is people can't get them.
Metal type? Can I answer that one? Chrome.
No, those are not. The LMTs were not. They were enhanced. They enhanced the cam track.
Against roll? Well, he wants to know your favorite metal type.
Oh, my favorite metal type is chrome plated.
Okay. See, I thought for sure that I messed that up because I was like, I knew it was the LMT.
To me, ideally would be an LMT enhanced carrier, chrome plated, which I do have a prototype one, with the nickel plated or one of the special type coating they have on their enhanced bolt. Now, a bolt carrier system that I do like is Young Manufacturing. They have a beautiful chrome bolt carrier group, and they come with the new HM, I think it's HM bolt, which has the bottom is left solid, so its bolt is much stronger. So you have a special cam pin. It's an enhanced system. There's something else I'm quite fond of. I replaced the extractor ejector springs with the more powerful ones out of Springco, and that's another one that I like quite a bit. Chrome, unfortunately, is hard to come by. And when I did the interview with Carl Lewis a year ago, I was sort of disappointed when he said that they were looking to get away from chrome on their 308s, which was sort of sad. He found a better finish. But I still prefer chrome when I can find them, and these days they're relatively hard to come by.
Speaking of fouls, do you have experience to share about Enterprise STG 58 receivers? And does DS Arms sell barrels worth buying for this receiver?
I can't talk too much about those receivers, but I can tell you I do have quite a bit of experience with DS Arms. DS Arms makes a beautiful foul. They're all off of original drawings. I believe those are out of those drawings came from Austria. With Austrian machines and everything as well, and they also use forged receivers versus anything else. So I'm definitely more fond of going with the fouls coming out of DS Arms.
During your career, what was the most significant development in small arms that we take for granted today?
There's been a lot of neat ideas over the years that just did not come to fruition. I was very excited when I first saw the Bushmaster ACR. Dre Clark brought one to me in Rochester, and we did a live demo. I did a big thing for it on Small Arm Review. I was really excited to see that come out with the modularity that it had. Just disappointed in the execution. You look at the M16 series. I've always said that the LMT MRP was the fourth generation. It was the most significant enhancement since the M4, and that was in 2003 when that came out. And it wasn't really realized until after the ban, and 10 years later, about how incredible it was, to the point, well, now Carl can't make enough of them. So I felt that was a very significant advancement, was that modularity. If you look at most of the technology, it's all the same. Your biggest changes are going to be materials, a better barrel, better polymer, or better what. Operating systems really have not changed at all in the last 100 years. Most of the rifles you're seeing today that are external piston, they come from the AR-180. Again, the AR-180 was one of those successful failures. The gun itself was a failure, but almost everybody who makes a modern day assault rifle adheres to that design. So it's probably hard to say, that. I look at some very interesting things like the XCR, Rob Starvett. I mean, he had removable barrels and everything long before FN came out with a SCAR. If you look at the requirements for the SCAR, the XCR did them all. It did a lot more than FN did. So there's a lot of really good designs that never really got to see the light of day. The Adcore Bear, when Mike Brown was with him, that was one of the finalists in the individual car meet. It beat out most all of the modern ones. But again, due to him leaving the company and the corruption and everything going on with Adcore, that guy's now the guy who owns Adcore is now in jail for fraud, and Adcore shut down. So again, there's been a lot of really good ideas out there that just didn't hit prime time.
You know what wasn't a good idea? That submarine going down the
No,
Titanic.
that was not. I can't believe somebody was that stupid they would take that kind of a risk to go see Titanic. I mean,
Do you know that they're now saying that window that they have at the end of it was that they fired the guy who worked there because he said it wasn't safe to go down that far in it, that they needed
you'd think. I mean, you look
this
at
reminds me of Colt, like
Yeah.
stuff that you would find in the
regular submarines. They have a crush depth which is far less than what they were going down to. And that guy who brought his son, Jesus, I have a hard enough time putting my kids on an airplane, let alone doing something like that. I mean, there's just some things that are just crazy stupid. I don't know. That's just me. I would never take a risk like that. Not to mention I'm claustrophobic. That wouldn't
Oh
work.
my God, are you kidding? I would have already had a panic attack and died just from claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Dave on Thermal Box, thank you, Dave. Depending on your intent, all ammo are purpose built. That being said, it seems that both M855 and M855A1, both barrier penetrators, cannot defeat level 3 plus armor, but M1A3 seems to have no problem due to higher velocity. Did the U.S. military choose an inferior standard round?
Well, they're not. The M855 and the M855A1 are not armor piercing. The M995 is an armor piercing round with a tungsten core. The M855A1 it penetrates deeper, but not that deeper. I did a video where I did the actual testing on armor plate, and if you look at the armor plate that we went through, it was almost a 3/4 inch. I forget what it was, but if you actually look at the depths between the M855 and the M855A1, it was not all that much different. It was, but then the M995 blew right through like it was nothing. Those are they're penetrators. The M855 was not armor piercing. That was a penetrator that was designed to get a Soviet helmet at 1,000 yards. So, M855A1 was an improvement in penetration, but it's still not armor piercing.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're so happy that you were able to make it and hang out
Yes,
with us
thank you
for a
very
little
much.
bit. Hopefully we got through, I think we got through almost all of the questions. So
Now, any of you guys out there who are not on our Patreon, I'd really like to suggest you guys take a look at be part of our Patreon family. I'm sure you guys know what YouTube's done for as far as monetization and the cost to bring you these videos and things like that. That would really help us out a lot. You guys who would become Patreon supporters because that's really where we get most of our funding from. So we can provide you with these videos.
Sean, he said you didn't answer my question. I was like, Sean, you don't have any questions. I'm thinking you don't have it. You're answering the questions for me. You're my unofficial moderator.
Did he have one?
No, he said I don't have any.
Oh.
LOL.
Yeah, he's usually one that helps me out with
I know.
information.
I know. He's helping everybody in the chat.
And any of you guys who are
so
also
much.
on there, you see a guy named Brett Sauer on there. He's somebody else that you want to ask questions to. He now works for Colt as an armor instructor. So he's got some more inside what's going on at Colt as well. But we're very happy when Brett comes in.
Well, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your weekends. Hopefully it's not as hot as it is here in Texas. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.